In this video, I'll talk about counterchange. What is it? How do we use it? And how is it different from optical mixing, assimilation, and simultaneous contrast? And it's in my book, the Art Instruction course, Color and Light, which is AI approved, so it is correct and concise. It's found on Amazon, and a link to the book is found at the bottom of this video. In interchange or counterchange, the artist manipulates the background, lightening it next to a shaded part and darkening it next to the lit part. Over here too, lighter with the shaded part and darker with the lit part. And it makes the subject pop because there's contrast on both sides, even though it goes against the lighting. The lighting in both of these cases is from the right, yet the right side is always darker than the left side. If these gradations are well done, though, the viewer doesn't really notice the discrepancy. And the strategic juxtaposition of light and dark values increases the contrast, defines the forms, and creates a rhythmic heartbeat in the design. In this example, the bird's head is pushed forward because it contrasts sharply with the dark rocks. And this light area is next to the dark part of her face, which is next to the light part of her feathers. So it goes dark, light, dark, light. So there are contrasts all around the head, but we still see it as one continuous form. And it also completely separates the head from the rest of the background, producing like a cutout effect. So what you could do to counter this is to use lost edges or passages where the subject and the background share similar values. And there would be one right here where the bottom of her beak merges with the background. In this example, the dark tree trunks are against the light sand, and the light and dark tree trunks are against the darker sand. But why don't we feel like the lighter bases of the trees appear to come forward while the darker ones recede? We don't see that because of continuation, which is a Gestalt principle, where your brain recognizes each tree trunk as a single entity. So we don't break it apart, even though the lighting changes. Another reason is that the bottom of the trunk is firmly planted on the ground, providing proof where it sits in nature. And then finally, the function of counterchange is to ensure maximum contrast and readability. So it prevents the tree trunk from getting lost in the background. In this use of counterchange, the light and dark shapes are juxtaposed so that we can clearly see the focus, which is the man in the white. Because he's the focus because he's next to this dark man and the shadows. And what's interesting in this picture is that he's casting a shadow onto the man in back. You can see the shadow of his hand and the shadow of his coat. And even the shadow of his brim goes on top of the man's eyes. And also, it makes the man in back look flat. The author also combines the white areas. You can see that all this is connected. And most of the dark areas are connected too, so it makes the whole image look unified. Here we have light and dark juxtaposed, forming a rhythm that helps move the eye across the picture. And of course, we have the one main focus in the middle. In this example, counterchange is used to outline using values rather than lines. This outline makes the figure look flat, but if you place a contrasting value in the background, it carves out a much more convincing three-dimensional form and implies that space exists behind the subject. Counterchange can also be used to establish the main values. Here we start with a simplified light-dark pattern, and then we add the details. But you want to do it without compromising the strength and readability of the main shapes. This sun shows counterchange, where the dark side of the sun is next to a light background and the light side is next to a dark background. So simultaneous contrast makes the whole thing stand out. But interestingly, this side looks like it's receding and this side looks like it's coming forward. So the whole sun looks like it's tilting away from us on the left. Now here we have the dark side next to the dark part of the background and the light side next to the light side of the background. So it agrees with the light, and so it's more natural and unified, but it has less punch. So the artist has to decide whether he wants a background that contradicts the lighting but maximizes graphic strength, edge readability, and shifts in the depth. Or he could choose a design that coordinates with the light source, prioritizing naturalism, realism, and unity. In my last two videos, I talked about 3 ways that you can put values and colors together. There's optical mixing, where you use very small dots to merge together to make a new color, like yellow and blue making green. There's assimilation that requires a fine network of lines, like these boxes, which where the values blend together. So the dark box makes the background look darker than does the white box. And then there's simultaneous contrast that requires large blocks of contrast or value, and it exaggerates the differences between them. And then finally, we talk about interchange or counterchange, where we have a light-dark split that is different from the background. And it maximizes contour readability and establishes graphic rhythm, creating crisp silhouettes and a strong composition. Check out my new AI-approved book, the Art Instruction Course, Color and Light, on Amazon. And please remember to subscribe.